My goodness.
We're live. Hey, everybody. We are back. It's been a minute, but I'm Ty, or I'm not Ty. That's Ty.
Ty. I'm Val.
I'm Val. I don't even know who I am anymore. It's been so long. And we are going to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. I believe one of the shows that we last left you with was kind of our predictions about what was going to happen for Spider-Man. Also, I'm in my kitchen facing my living room right now. So if you're listening at home or if you're watching live, you're going to hear some dogs barking in a little bit. You're going to hear my life happening around me because I cannot get into my office right now. So this is the real world. And if you have not seen Spider-Man No Way Home yet, just go ahead and save this for later. Just put a little save on this and watch it later and tell us what you think, because we are going to get into everything. We were wrong about a few things.
Yeah. Well, okay. I had high hopes for some things, but a couple of them were me really reaching, just throwing out like, okay, just throw this and that. We're expecting a mega level on everything in this movie. So, but there was a few things I was kind of right about. Yes and no. Like, some of it happened, but it didn't happen exactly how I said it was going to. So,
right.
But where do you want to start? Are we going to go like piece by piece, or how are we going to break this down?
However you would like to go. I'm letting you nerd out on this one. So you jump into a spot you want to talk about, and we will go on. But I figured you were going to at least nerd out or kind of freak out for at least the first 10 minutes. I think me, Tracy, and Jake have a bet on the amount of minutes that you're going to nerd out on this episode by yourself.
Not going to lie, I was kind of saying this episode might be like an hour long from how much we have to talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be an hour and no longer than an hour. We might have to do a part 2.
I'll restrain a little
bit. Just because I have to do some other things. But no, don't restrain. Just, again, talk. And if we have to come back and do part 2, then we will.
First thing that was really refreshing was this movie literally picks up right where Far From Home ends. So it's not like, and I guess that's something you have to look at that was really cool about this movie. It's not, okay, Far From Home, then a little bit of time passes, and the first 10, 20 minutes of the movie is like, this is what happened after Peter Parker was announced as Spider-Man. This happened, a chronological opening. No, it went straight from, okay, Spider-Man's real name is Peter Parker. And then we pan back into No Way Home, and it's like, Spider-Man's real name is Peter Parker. What the? So,
yeah, I mean, they jumped right in like we didn't miss a beat at all. And they got really real about how society is with, knowing things, and like that whole scene right there. And they are looking at MJ and they're like, oh, do you know him? Are you his girlfriend? And like getting angry at her. And then when he goes down there and a woman actually puts her hand on him and he steps back, she's like, oh, Spider-Man hit me, Spider-Man. And I'm like, this is the world we live in. Like, this is exactly the stupid people that are out there. And it kind of hit a little nerve with me for a minute there, because we only want our heroes to be our heroes when it's convenient for us, right? And then the minute it's not convenient for us, or we can get something better out of it, then we change our minds. We're so flaky as humans.
Yeah. I love how we have Jameson not recording from a big studio yet. You have him recording from his room with a green screen chilling in the back. So I thought that was funny. The Daily Bugle before it was actually, something.
Okay, you talk for a minute. Hold, because I have my daughter's calling me. Hold on. You talk.
No worries. I did like how he kind of got attacked.
With your foot?
I liked how he basically, from every revenue, you had people coming in, choppers coming to his house. And the scene that killed me right off the bat was Happy. Could have I done something better? I didn't know you were completely miserable. And so I thought that was hilarious. panning through that, fast forwarding it to when he gets arrested. I'm going to jump from bit to bit here to the part where he gets arrested, and then instantly you see MJ and Aunt May, don't say anything without a lawyer. It's like, okay, we're connecting those two characters in that way. I think the big bombshell, and here's the thing, me and Tracy were talking about it long before anyone was kind of hinting, but Tracy's like, do you think that Daredevil's going to pop up? In the like Matt Murdock?
Yeah.
And I was like, I was torn in two, because when you see the picture of Peter with the devil horns kind of painted on him and everything, it's hinting to two different things. One, Tracy was right. Tracy, you called it. Daredevil does pop up. Well, not Daredevil, the vigilante. You have Matt Murdock.
But the best lawyer ever.
I'm a good lawyer. But see, I was taking it as another Mephisto. I'm still on that train, guys. It's going to happen. And I'm saying it on record right now, because I was taking it as a Mephisto hint, because this movie is heavily based off of the comic book One Last Day.
Okay.
Where it's Peter Parker goes to Mephisto with this same deal. Saying the world would be a lot easier if everyone didn't know that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Difference is he's older. He's actually married to MJ. And the deal is, yeah, I can do that for you, Pete, but even MJ's not going to remember who you are. So your own wife isn't going to know who you are.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he takes the deal because he thinks, I can win her back. And it just can of worms everywhere. Obviously, with this movie, and the thing I like that we talk about all the time, the MCU never directly pulls from one storyline.
Yeah.
It created an art form of saying, snippet from this line, snippet from here. We're going to build a brand new storyline. They're creating
their own multiverse.
Exactly. The fact that we saw Matt Murdock. Well, here's the thing too, guys. We had to expect it. We had to. With the episode 4, 5 of Hawkeye that dropped just before
so if you haven't
release.
seen Hawkeye, just to let you know, we're spoilering it, because a lot of this kind of fits and mixes and matches with this. So if you haven't watched Hawkeye, again, come back.
This is a spoilers for everything, guys.
Yeah,
Heads
spoilers.
Up.
Well, but I didn't put that in the title, so
I'm saying right now. Yeah. Right now, telling you guys, these movies are going to be so interlinked from here on out that you cannot watch one without getting bits and pieces from the other. So, spoiler, in Hawkeye, the episode that dropped the day before Spider-Man aired in theaters, Kingpin shows up. And so it's like, okay, you have Kingpin. Not only is Kingpin a big Spider-Man baddie, he's also Daredevil's arch nemesis. And so that's going to be fun now that we have Spider-Man and Daredevil coming in, because you have, the hero from Queens and also the Hell's Kitchen hero kind of.
Yeah, but the movie came out before that specific episode dropped. So
no, it didn't. The episode came out before the movie.
Maybe Wednesday. Maybe I didn't watch it. Oh, I watched it after because I was waiting for Dave. So, but it was close enough that if you hadn't been caught up, you wouldn't have seen both of them at the same time. You may have been one of those people that were lucky enough to see that and then see this. And then they're tying things together that most franchises don't do. Most franchises do not tie together TV and movies. Film. And that's what they're doing. And I'm really loving it. I mean, they started it with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And
that puts a bad taste in my mouth.
Right. But what they did for that is they opened the door saying, hey, guess what? We can go from TV to movie to movie to TV, and we're going to. So they gave us hope that maybe it could happen in the future. And I was really bummed when Netflix canceled Daredevil, because I really loved that show and I really loved the casting and the characters. So when we see him in the movie, and then when we saw Kingpin, which I knew Kingpin was coming, I just knew we were going to see him. The way they set up Hawkeye and how they're talking about, the big guy, and
Yeah.
you're in New York. I'm like, okay, this is Kingpin. And I'm running through my head, who else could it be? And it was Kingpin, and I'm really glad they used the same actor. I love D'Onofrio. He is absolutely cast best in that movie. The only thing I didn't love was the Hawaiian shirt that they put on him.
No, but that's comic book accurate. That is
I know,
super comic book accurate, though.
For me, there were some moments during that scene. I was like, to me, okay, the shirt I'll give you. I saw in the comic book, but some of the things he did during that scene didn't seem like him. But I'm really happy that he's there. And now that we have that world in both Hawkeye's world and we have it in Spider-Man's world, I'm really excited to see what's going to come next, because the whole time, like the whole audience, all 4 times that I've seen this movie, as soon as we saw Daredevil on screen, like everybody just freaked out, right?
Only person.
Really?
Legit, only person.
We're in the wrong screenings.
My theater, I wasn't super interactive, and I was kind of bummed out because I've heard like all these different experiences from other people who had really good audience reaction, and it became like a group thing through watching this, and it became like a bonding thing for people who didn't even know each other, but we all understood. But I was the only person who freaked out when Daredevil came up.
Every single time I saw it, people freaked out in the theater, and I saw it at various places at various different times. So that sucks. I'm sorry, but I was excited. You were excited. Dave was excited. It was really hard for me not to tell him all of these things because I had seen it almost 2 weeks before he had seen it, and it was such a big deal. And he had a good thing. He was hoping to see Daredevil, but he thought he would maybe be a part of the multiverse, how they were dropping everyone in, but he's not. He is in this specific universe. And so that really brings the story to another level, because we know now he's in ours, because they're playing back and forth in that whole movie of, is it in our universe or theirs? And to jump ahead, because Venom that we know isn't from this universe. He was from a different universe.
Oh, but trust me, I got good stuff for you there too.
No, but I mean, it answers a lot of questions for me, but now he has left something behind, and now there's going to be a new Venom in this universe. And so I'm going to say this out loud. Don't hate me. I don't care for the Venom movies. I don't care for what they've done with it. I'm not excited about it. I thought the last Venom movie was a piece of poo. And none of the extra scenes that they keep giving us are exciting to me. But that little moment, I was like, okay, so he's not in this universe. So we're already seeing movies and stories from another multiverse before this. So that part of it excites me. That part of it excites me.
I think our Venom is in Andrew's universe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I'm glad we're on the same. Yeah.
And everyone's crossing their fingers now that Andrew Garfield gets an Amazing Spider-Man 3, and I think it and Venom just...
I mean, there are no rules now. They've brought everything back so they can do whatever they want to do. Yeah, so we know we see Daredevil. He gets a lawyer. All of that stuff is happening. And I want to jump to, though, like when he gets to Aunt May's house and all of the press is around them, is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. It's so awkward and so real, and Happy's just there not happy, and he's just worried about, I just want to talk about your guys' relationship, and they don't ever get a chance to talk about it, which kind of foreshadows the fact that they're never going to get a chance to talk about it. And I have to tell all of you guys something. Right before I go in to see this movie, an hour before, this little guy right here, Ty, he messages me, I think Happy's going to die. Nothing else. And I'm like, what are you doing to me? Because I really tried. I watched the trailers because I had to, but I didn't deep dive into anywhere else. And he's trying to send me stuff. And I'm like, la, la, la. And then right before I go into the movie, I think Happy dies. Click. And I'm like, I knew somebody that he cared for had to die, because that's all the stories, right? With Spider-Man, like somebody has to die for him to get pushed, just like an Avengers, just like an Iron Man. Like, it's how it is. And in all of the other stories, that's how it is. So when you said happy, I was like, okay, well, I could see how that could be a thing, but as soon as I realized it was going to be Aunt May,
Oh man.
that was a bigger kick, because I understand, like, happy would be a problem for him, but Aunt May creates more of a problem for him.
And see, that's the thing. It pissed off my wife really good. She's like, they totally give us hope, because she gets back up after getting slammed by the Green Goblins, you know.
But that's her. Like, she's determined. She's determined to just be okay.
Okay, we're getting ahead too.
Yeah, sorry.
Panning up to him heading to the Doctor Strange's place. I loved the detail that we get that Wong is now the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
Out of a little technicality from him blipping. And I'm like, okay, because in WandaVision, we go back, you have Agatha Harkness saying she will have more power than the Sorcerer Supreme. And at the time, I'm like, you know, it's kind of hard to think her going up toe to toe with Strange at like maximum level. They're pretty even. If you do a deep dive, they're pretty well matched.
Yeah.
But now contemplating that it's Wong who is the Sorcerer Supreme during WandaVision. And so it's like, okay, yeah, she could totally wipe out Wong. Not anything bad against any of you guys that like Wong. He's a great character in the comic books.
Yeah.
He's a support. But no offense, Scarlet Witch could wipe the floor with him. And it makes sense in Shang-Chi too, why he's kind of just...
So what timeline does Shang-Chi hit? Because is he, as the Sorcerer Supreme, is he out there fighting as the Sorcerer Supreme? Because to me, in this movie, he's super serious. He's taking his job very seriously. And then if you go into Shang-Chi, I mean, he's kind of not. I mean,
I still think he is the Sorcerer Supreme. I think that's why he's doing all these little, you know, drop-ins, like, oh, hi, how are you, kind of thing. And when he finds out about the 10 rings, that's kind of within his realm to be like, this is otherworldly and I need to check it out. Okay. So I think he is.
Because we all asked, like, why would we have seen him and not Doctor Strange pop through there?
Yeah. Right.
Like, it makes a lot of sense, but it also, like, he didn't want to have any kind of fun in the Spider-Man movie, but he had all sorts of fun in Shang-Chi. So I guess he picks his fun and when he wants to have it.
Maybe at the beginning of Shang-Chi was his, like, earlier stage of being the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah.
But now things are kind of piling on and he's like, come on.
All right. I'm going to pull a Harry Potter kind of nonsense right here. Okay. If they can freaking change people's minds and thoughts about what they're thinking, why can't they thaw out their own house? Why is there not like a magical thing where they can just be like that and then the house is thawed out? I mean, I know it would be less fun because we wanted to see him in his sweatpants and his sweatshirt and people, you know, shoveling. But at some point, isn't there a spell for that? Come on.
Probably. Okay, we're getting into it though, because I'm going to say something else that would have just completely killed the storyline here for this entire movie. I'm saying this again, guys, right now, and if I'm wrong, I'll own it. And it's not even a big deal if I'm wrong. This is not our Doctor Strange. I have said this many, many, many times. This is not our Strange.
Are you sure?
I have proof. As we keep getting into it.
Because as I'm watching that movie, I'm thinking, oh, Ty was wrong, and so was I, because we thought that this was going to be.
You have multiple callbacks to What If in this movie. One, you have zombie hunter Spidey when the cape grabs onto him, and he's kind of floating around there. It's totally a callback to the What If episode where Peter gets the cape. When he has the contraption that's going to destroy the spell. you legit have Peter. Come on, Strange, have a heart. That is an instant callback to what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands. And listen to his voice and the mannerisms that he has when Peter says that. His voice goes rigid and he goes all, it's their fate. Their sacrifice is immensely worth more than their lives in the multiverse.
Right, but that's kind of how he was in Endgame too. And then he pops back at the end and he said, those of us who love you, and he said us, and he took a beat, will not remember you. So he's then admitting he cares about him. So
I still think.
So what Doctor Strange is this?
I still think Strange Supreme, the awesome trailer that we get at the end where he says things got a little messy. He's just well disguised. Look, okay, here's the thing.
So where's the other Strange then?
It's a multi-dimensional thing. For all we know, in What If, you had Strange separate into two separate things. For all we know, he's off in another mirror existence, thinking everything's honky-dory. While this one, like I said, you have one guy who destroyed his own universe already. Why would he go through the lengths to do this for Peter? They've tampered with space and time already so much, like. And then also, why did we not just say, oh, can you make everyone forget that Mysterio ever existed?
But Mysterio's not even in here yet.
That's what I'm saying. No, look, you have all the events that happened in Far From Home, right?
Right.
Why did they not just cast the spell and say, hey, can you make everybody forget about what happened with Mysterio and that he ever existed?
Because then we wouldn't have a movie.
I'm just saying, like.
For me, it was like, why didn't they just say, you know, and I heard a lot of people saying this like during the movie. I had a very interactive screenings that I was at is, hey, just go back to the people that knew and that's it. Like have everybody that knew before know. And then, but if they would have done that, he wouldn't have messed up the thing. And then we wouldn't have had a whole movie. So like, I get it. That's how we are in almost all movies, especially Die Hard. Like, why are you running that way? Why?
Yeah.
So I get it. But all right. So there were still floating out there that this could not be our Doctor Strange. This could be a different Doctor Strange. So we'll put a pin in that.
Well, and we have 3 confirmed variants of Strange in the new year. So we have Supreme Strange, which is the dark one that we obviously see in the trailer. And I've been saying since What If that he exists in the MCU. Normal Doctor Strange. And then this weekend, we just got a picture dropped of Defender Strange, who in the trailer, we don't know who it is at first. I was kind of wondering which character it was. It's Doctor Strange with like a ponytail and a black and red suit. And basically in the trailer, we see him kind of falling through some glass. And I was like, oh man, who is this character? Because for a minute, I'm like, oh, is it Mordo or is it somebody else? But we got a full-blown picture saying, oh no, it's Defender Strange, which leads me to think in this movie, are we going to get a thing called the Council of Strange, which is like it's basically a group of him from different multiverses that convene about the interdimensional threats.
Okay, so I've never read any of these comic books, and some people haven't. So explain all 3 of these Stranges for us.
So Defender Strange is, how do I put him? He would be more like an upbeat, kind of like smarter, more bronze than brains kind of Strange. Uses magic and muscle, basically. A little bit more intelligent. And then you have our normal Strange from, obviously, Doctor Strange, the first movie, Endgame, and stuff like that. My favorite who is appearing, and I want to call him Sinister Strange, but that's not a thing right now. But Strange Supreme is what he's called, is a darker version of Strange that has crossed the lines and gone into darker forbidden magic. So let's see, how was your reaction when we got Doc Ock on the bridge?
I mean, if you've watched the trailer, you knew he was coming.
Yeah.
Doc Ock is one of my favorite characters. Not only do I love the Doc Ock from, the universe they pulled him from in this specific actor, but I love Doc Ock from Into the Spider-Verse. Like, I just love how they've used Doc Ock as a very intricate character and villain / not villain. Is a very intricate part of Peter's life. And so it's very interesting that we don't get that character in the Tom Holland universe, because he is a very intricate part into the life of Peter Parker that most of us know. So I loved it when they made him a part of then Miles Morales' life as well. So when I saw that he was coming and the same actor was coming back, I was just super excited. And so that whole scene on the bridge to me is just brilliant, because in a matter of, I think, like 4.5 to 5.5 minutes, they bring all three universes full circle, which I just so brilliant. Like, we've seen other superhero movies try and be complicated like this, and this was so complicated and intricate, but at the same time they made it look so easy. And when Peter is on that bridge and all of a sudden you hear, the noises and people running, and then you see, come up, and it just, to me, I still get chills. It's such a great scene. And then when Peter is able to take over with his suit on purely accidentally, he takes over. That to me not only brings in the seriousness of that character entering into that universe, but then brings back the Marvel humor that we love through the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. Like, they have all of these very heavy moments, but then they have humor and it matches so well together. I just loved that whole part. And then he grabs the car and brings it up. And I love the fact that the dean of students then like tries to beat the crap out of him with her purse at the end. Like,
I see you.
I see you. Like, it was just, and Peter's still worried more about his friends than he is himself. And, there have been so many, after I saw the movie, I started reading more articles and stuff like that. And there are so many people that are like, Tom Holland is not my Spider-Man, and he doesn't represent any of the Spider-Man in the comic books, where to me, Tom Holland is my Spider-Man. Like,
that's mine too.
I feel like nothing to the other Spider. I think they all had a good reason to be there. And their movies were great at the time, but for me, I've never connected with a Spider-Man more for a live action movie than Tom Holland. For any Spider-Man movie, it's Into the Spider-Verse. I connect with that one more than anything. Yeah. But Tom Holland to me has that, neighborhood Spider-Man that cares more about his friends and more about the neighborhood than his own well-being. He's willing to be totally just an idiot and put his own well-being and safety aside so that he can take care of others. And this movie really showed it, because I wasn't a huge fan of the second movie in this franchise.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I watched it again the day before I was going to watch this one, and it's still not my favorite. I like parts about it and I like what it introduced, but I don't care about Mephisto. I don't care about that whole character thing. I maybe it's just because I'm not a huge fan of the Gyllenhaal. He's just, I don't know. I'm gonna get hate mail for that. But
finally, Val's gonna get the hate mail instead of me for once. Okay.
The second movie is not my favorite. We needed it to get us to this point, but that's all I feel it was. It was just a stepping point to this movie, which is way more needed than that one. So to me, this movie really, out of all of the Spider-Man movies, showed us who Spider-Man is and who he can be, especially, and I'll put a pin in it, but when we jump forward and we have all three of them, there are a couple moments that I just thought the franchise, I was like, you guys are brilliant. Like, and I'll put a pin in that for now. But yeah, that Doc Ock on the bridge was so much fun for me. And then when they bring in the Green Goblin for a minute, I was like, all right, here we go. And then all of a sudden, flash, they're in the basement. They've got more characters there, you know, than we had seen before. And I was like, okay, this is neat. This is really happening.
The interaction between all these different villains coming from the other, you know, universes, that was fun to watch, the banter and kind of stuff that went through there.
When they're like, that can't be the Green Goblin. Why? Because he's dead. What do you mean he's dead? And the other guy's like, yeah, you both died. And then they're kind of going back and forth. And in their universes, it's all happened a different way. But in this universe, none of it's happened.
So, and we had a comment come up that I really like. It says that people don't really take into consideration that Tom Spidey is a kid.
Yeah.
And that these are the actions and decisions of a teenager, which, again, yeah, I really love that. And our next phase is going to be his new trilogy that he's coming out with, where we're going to see the college and the young adult years. And we've made the transition from aspiring, you know, wannabe hero to the guy who has paid the ultimate price to see what sacrifice really is.
And we saw that a little bit with Tobey Maguire's a little bit, like a teeny bit, but they kind of went really quickly through it to get to the meat of what they wanted that story to be. And so we didn't really get to see him as the teenager. And that's the part that I feel like we were missing. And I think that they've done really well with this franchise. So I like that comment a lot. I totally agree with that.
So we're going to fast forward here. So we're talking about the villains in the room. You finally have Strange that shows up. And again, come on, Strange, have a heart. It's their fate. If they die, so be it. Their sacrifice is immensely worth more than their lives in the grand scheme of the multiverse. And then we lead into this awesome fight scene. Something I want to point out is when we're in front of the, you know, his place and he's going to grab the box from Spidey. And it's just.
And he's like, how can you do that? He's never seen it before.
Couple reasons.
Okay.
Go ahead. If you have something, go ahead.
No, I don't. I'm like, there's got to be something going on here. It's because, you know, so I want to know what your take is, because I have no idea.
One thing that's really interesting, if you notice, you've seen it 4 times, so I know you've noticed it. When his astral projection is sitting behind him, you see the kind of wavy things coming off him.
Yeah.
That's our visible SpiderSense that we're seeing, like how we got into the Spider-Verse.
Okay.
Yes, agreed. Another comment. The visuals were awesome. We're going to get into this.
Yeah.
That is our first actual, like, physical seeing the Spidey sense that's going on. Because if you look at the old Spider-Man cartoons, it would go into a pan in where he kind of slows down and then the colors flash.
Yeah.
You see these little waves kind of coming off his head.
Yeah.
And then when we came into the Spider-Verse, same thing. You have Peter B. Parker looking at Miles, and they're both like, oh, yeah, like me. And so I love that we finally got that in a really good visual way for Spider-Man in the MCU. Second reason is there are a few beings in the Marvel universe who are just linked into the multiverse. Spider-Man being one of these beings who is inevitably linked to all the multiverse. And so this makes it so he's not, what's the word I want to look for? He's not really affected by multi-dimensional tactics. Because, like, when you see in Endgame, you have, you know, the Ancient One who astro projects Bruce Banner, who is stuck outside of his form now. Whereas, again, you see Strange do it to Peter, but Peter is a multi-dimensional being. And this is kind of hinting to the web of the multiverse, like Madam Spider and all that big, like, stuff that's going on out there. So I think we might see more of that, or have a little bit more uncovered. He's a multi-dimensional entity who is not affected by that. So he's able to just, kind of do his thing. And then you're like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. And he kind of just comes back into his body.
Yeah.
And that's when we get this awesome fight in the mirror dimension.
Yeah.
And so another thing is that, yeah, again, he's able to go toe to toe with Strange because multi-dimensional effects and like tactics are something that he can fight against. It's not something that hits him as hard. Not just because he can like wall crawl and stick to anything around and shoot webs and like maneuver more. It's a physical attribute that it doesn't affect him as much. So, and then, this place is just geometry. You're great at geometry.
That's
Let's
great.
go.
I got math. I got you.
It's strange. You know what's cooler than magic? Math. And so, yeah,
Shout
we
out
get to
math nerds everywhere.
Yep. So that's where we get a really good inkling that he is like a multi-dimensional tie-in to everything. And then right after that, guys, I cried for half this movie.
What?
I cried like, and there was a couple I ugly cried.
Okay.
So we're gonna fast forward. It's like, oh hey guys, let's fix you and send you back. Oh man. And see, here's the part where I was semi-right, because on the bridge scene, I was like, okay, Doc Ock's gonna get the nanotech who is coming, like, you know, attaching to all of his limbs and whatnot. I'm like, as soon as it hits that fried chip in his neck,
Yeah.
I bet you he goes good.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen on the bridge. We obviously just got the, I can control your arms now. But then we pan to the scene where it's like, okay, here's your new chip because our technology is more advanced.
Right, but the scene where he's building that chip is such a Tony Stark scene that I was just like, oh, I love it so much when he was there and he's putting little things and he's got his glasses on like Tony Stark, and it just made me, I loved it so much that they keep coming back to, you know, how he is the better version, you know, of Tony Stark.
Well, there's even another callback to Iron Man when you have Doc Ock sitting in the front room.
Yeah.
Some teenager's going to fix us with a box of scraps.
Yeah.
So another Iron Man callback right there.
Yeah. And I got to say, like, the casting was, you can tell that it was great from the beginning, you know, from the beginning of the Spider-Man cinematic universe, because, you know, these villains and how they were cast so long ago were just fantastic, because to see Green Goblin and to see what
Dafoe walked onto that set like they had just finished filming Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I think I looked this up. Hold on, let me find this real quick. Sorry, I'm gonna get some dates for us here.
Yeah.
Original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man came out in 2002, guys.
Yeah, so long ago. But Willem Dafoe, to me, he is one of my favorite actors, like, of all time. And I thought, one, I liked him in the original, but him in this movie, and specifically those scenes in the apartment, for me, show the two sides of him way better than the original movie he was in. It was just this night and day, like, I want to see you discover things. I'm acting a little bit like a father, like a mentor, like the Tony, you know, that he used to have. And then when he switches to the Green Goblin and his face and his eyes and his voice, like, so much better. I mean, he was good in the original, but like so much better now. You know what I mean? It just, to me, that if I could just give him an award.
Norman's on sabbatical, honey.
So good.
Okay, I cannot skip this. The scene where they're, you know, still all in their cells. There was one other guy who laughed as hard as I did. As soon as he said the first word, you knew it was coming. You know, I'm something of a scientist myself. I died. I don't know about you. There are so many memes. Of course, like this one too. This one has its own meme of all three of them. Yeah, when they're standing in the scaffolding.
They also kind of do it a little bit when they're when they're at the school and they're putting
there was fan favoring everywhere.
They're building it, and he's like, Peter, and they're like, we're all Peter Parker, we're all Peter Parker. Like, they have a couple moments. Yeah.
Panning, I loved going back to the SpiderSense. I loved how we honed in, because this is right after Far From Home, where he was struggling. You know, we didn't really have him using his SpiderSense, and in that movie, that's kind of what turned the tide. Was he's like, I finally turned on my SpiderSense. And this one is just so much more advanced, and I love the scene because it gets all serious and pans in, and you're like, oh no, where's May? And he's like, May. You see her show up on the stairs, so it's like, okay, May's fine.
Yeah.
Something's still about to go down. And he's just kind of like deciphering who's the threat.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, you have Norman just.
Yeah.
I love the SpiderSense scenes in this movie.
Yeah.
And that one right there. Go for it.
And knowing that having them all in the same universe heightened their spider sense and awareness with each other. And I really liked how they showed that they didn't know right off the bat how to use it. You know, when they're like, okay, we're not doing very well here. What do we need to do? We've all worked alone before. And then, you know, Tom Holland's Peter Parker is like,
guys,
well,
I don't need to brag.
I don't need to brag, but I was in the Avengers. And he's like, oh, that's
great.
so cool.
What is that?
Is
that a band? Are you in a band?
a band?
Okay, going back to right after that, of course I cried at the Aunt May scene, and I love how this is Tom's origin. I love how we took a slight variant, and it was like, hey, Uncle Ben's not going to be your calling card. It's May who's going to be your deciding moment that this is why I am Spider-Man.
Well, and I love how we know so much more about May than we ever did about
the other
Ben,
two.
You know,
well, even the other two Mays, I feel like.
Yeah, but I mean, like Ben dying, we all knew that was going to happen because it happened in the comic book, and so we're just fine. It's still sad, but we know that is what it is. And the fact that we knew so much about May and we're attached to May, and how May has had, you know, this not only an effect on his life, but the community around him, which is the community that he protects, is, I think, such a great story arc inside of a story arc. You know what I mean? There were so many just arcs happening and closing and opening all at the same time during this movie, and it wasn't sloppy, and it's just brilliant. This is just like, you know how many movies I saw last year. I saw like 580 something movies last year. And this is my favorite movie by far. Like, there are technically better movies that'll be nominated for Academy Awards that are great, but this movie and how visually stunning it was, but also all the storylines meshed into one and not being a pile of undecisive DC crap. Sorry, I had to do it. You know, I had to do it.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay.
I love DC. DC could not pull this movie off.
They just haven't got it ready yet. Okay, we'll talk about personally. We'll talk.
We'll never be talking about DC on this show.
But personally, we'll go into discussion. We'll do a lunch with it or something. But
maybe we'll have an off show just for you, so we can talk about the Batman.
I can come over to movies that make us. Okay, then we have the moment where Ned, although you're right, I do have magic in me, opens a portal, and I have some things to say about this now too, because you did message me and we were talking a little bit. We have Andrew who finally comes through the portal. I got emotional then. And then we have a few minutes after that, Toby who comes through the portal. I get a little emotional then. And then, we have this, okay, where can we find him? Oh, I used to be on top of the Chrysler building. Oh, my spot's the Empire State Building. Better view. That is a sweet view. And isn't it just hilarious how when Toby comes through the door, Lolo is just a sweet little old lady over here just like,
hey.
It's like, oh my gosh. because he's that sweet kid from Queens that just no one has like a bad thing to say about him. The scene on top of the school building. Oh my gosh.
That every time, I mean, in Endgame, when he cries with Tony, like that to me is just, I cry every time. Like I just, thinking about it makes me teary, but this kind of tops that. This is his whole world. He lost Tony. He lost, this, that, and the other, but losing May, and knowing that it was his fault, it was his Tony moment. Because Tony had so many of those moments where he lost people or he put people in, harm's way. And it was because of his decisions, which made him kind of go off the deep end sometimes on how to overprotect people, which made even more bad decisions. And so he's been around for that, to see that. And now this is his own moment. And just seeing him in that ball crying, and he's a kid. Again, he's a kid. And Dr. Strange keeps saying it through the movies. Like, I keep forgetting that you're just a kid. And it's just so heartbreaking and such a great scene. And then, when then they show the shot of the silhouettes, of the two Spider-Men, and then he comes down and he's like, don't tell me you know how I feel. Don't pretend to know how I feel. And they both are like, okay, we've been here. We've been in the same place. We're going to ease into it. And then when they finish,
don't tell me you understand how I feel.
Yeah, I just, and he says all the same things that they said, and they're just waiting, for a minute, and then Tobey Maguire and Andrew finish, what Aunt May said to him. It's just, this is a story of redemption. Not only do these actors get to come back and prove that their Spider-Mans held true to what we needed at the time, and they still hold true, but these characters, these specific Peter Parkers, get redemption in the stories, in their own storylines. And that, to me, made me teary through the entire last half of the movie.
Here's the thing, too. We get a snippet of them. We understand that their stories went on.
Yeah. When we weren't watching, they still went on.
Yeah, Toby, eventually, I guess him and MJ worked, and he became
kind of in their own way
Spider-Man. But then we learned Andrew's still in this really hard place. It's like, I became rageful, and I just stopped holding my punches, and I became a bad Spider-Man. So, panning to the fight scene, man. And it's crazy. It's kind of, I guess we have the Sandman, but it's funny because all these other characters are so OP and over the top. And then you got Sandman, I don't trust anybody. I just want to go
home. Hey, you kids, get off my lawn.
Pretty much, right? Then you got Electro.
Which I think is fine.
I love how Jamie Foxx is, and they give the explanation of how, he has new energy in this universe. That's why he's all handsome and looking good.
Yeah.
And our Goblin in this one, I wanted to make the quick note, is super ultimate Spider-Man storyline Goblin. So for you guys who don't know who that is, it's, same Norman Osborn, but he's so vengeful and wanting to turn ruthless. Spider-Man. Yeah,
he ruthless. It's not just anger anymore. He is ruthless, manipulative, just, terrible.
And it gets to the point to where at the end of the Ultimate Spider-Man storyline, he's with the Sinister Six, and the other guys are like, look, Norman, just forget about Spider-Man, okay, man? You are obsessing way too much. And he's like, I'm going to kill him. And just at the end of that storyline, it drives it to where Goblin dies. Peter saves the day, but he dies at the end. And you have MJ and Aunt May holding his limp body as he just passes, and holy cow, that's the Spider-Man, I think, or not Spider-Man, very Goblin that we got from this movie.
Yeah. All right, we have a question. Did any of you guys think that Jamie Foxx was playing more of himself rather than Max Dillon, or was that just me? He still did a great job, but I just noticed it.
I think he was still playing Electro. I mean, look at how the dude looked in Amazing Spider-Man 2, man. Lizard said it the best. He's like, you had a comb over, buck teeth, and just looked like a goofy dude. And then he went into having like almost no body and then to pure energy.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel, because I'm a fan of Jamie Foxx, but one thing about his acting is he can bring a lot of himself to all of his roles, or kind of that, I don't know, that Jamie Foxx like swagger to it. So I did see a little bit of that, but I think that's exactly what that character needed a little bit, because it didn't work for me the first time around. I wanted it to be so much more the first time around, and I think they tried to make it. I think in that moment, they were trying to be a little bit more like DC's villains, because at that moment, DC was making a better movie, but their villains were super cheesy. They were very comic book-esque.
Yeah.
And sometimes that doesn't always translate to the big screen. And I think for me, it was too cheesy in the original. And I like this time around, if he's going to get all those powers, you better bet he's going to be this swagger
looking
guy
that's while he's doing it, right?
Looking good, because, to me, it made a lot more sense. But I do agree with you. I did see a lot more of Jamie Foxx in this character than the one before.
So then we're here at the fight scene. We're taking on the villains. We have that awesome scene that we just talked about. I was part of the Avengers. Cool. You guys don't have the Avengers?
Yeah. So we realized, and we already kind of knew this, is that those worlds are definitely not the same. He may not have gotten the villains that these two Spider-Men got, but they didn't have the Avengers. And I think that's what all of us leading up to this, we're really upset about when the Avengers first happened, was, where the crap is Spider-Man, because Spider-Man is a huge part of the Avengers. And of course, there's this big battle between the studios, and so we couldn't have it. But this movie tied all of those loose ends together in a very neat and tidy, but very, to me, satisfying way.
So then we're going in, we're curing people. We come down to where it's just the Goblin. He breaks the case holding the spell. It flies out. The rifts between the multiverses is starting to rip. Peter goes and says, okay, just hold him. Well, sorry, he doesn't just go. So we have him fighting Goblin. And I like how it shows him he's getting rageful. We're about to get a very dark Spider-Man, and Tobey's not going to have it.
Yeah.
And so it's a very similar thing to where it's like he's trying to save Osborn in his movie.
Mm-hmm.
And you see him come in this again, grabbing the glider, not letting... Go for it.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish.
I was going to say he is not going to have Peter basically become what he did, because he got his revenge that he wanted.
Yeah.
And it turned him into a very dark and bitter person. So he's like, this is a kid. I cannot let him.
Yeah. Well, and I really like how they made Tobey's Peter Parker character very much like the older brother or like father figure character in this movie. Because in the original movies, and I'll get hate mail again, I mean, he is kind of the Kylo Ren of Spider-Man, right? He's super whiny. He's super... he's a whiny, sad little Spider-Man, right? I love those movies. I love him as Spider-Man, but I love how in this movie they let him be that level-headed, I've done this, I want to help you. And they really let him be the good actor that he is.
Yeah.
But I feel like he didn't get a chance of a lot because of the writing and the directing in the original Spider-Man movies. There was glimpses of it for sure, and I can still watch those movies and have so much fun, but he is the Kylo Ren of Spider-Man. I mean, you have to admit it. Like, he could be a
I don't know if I'd say Kylo Ren. I mean,
he could be a Skywalker for sure.
Here's the thing. Tobey's movies came out, like I said, the first one's 2002.
Yeah.
Val, I was 11 and this movie came out, so it rocked my world, okay?
I'm not saying at the time I'm not saying it wasn't great. But for a Spider-Man character, for me, he was a little whiny. Does it mean that I don't like him? It absolutely does not.
Okay.
And then as you progress into Andrew Garfield is not whiny, but he's really in touch with his feelings, right? And then you get Tom Holland, who
this
is
little ball of
he's
amazing
just a
Spidey.
sponge. He's just I want to know. I want to know. I want to be a part. I want to see. Yes, I have feelings. Yes, I can cry. Yes, I can be in love. Yes, I can be angry and frustrated. But it's just way more of it's a little bit of everything instead of like really leaning on one side. And I think with Toby's, they have him lean really far to the side of kind of being a whiny Spidey. So I liked in this movie, they gave him a chance to be that Spider-Man that said, I've already done all of this and I'm going to help you out. And I'm, and even Andrew Garfield's like, I've always wanted brothers. So as they, they set this up that this is like a brotherhood and we care about each other. And, that moment where he just puts his hand under that and you see his face. And I don't know. That was such a great moment for him and for Spider-Man in general.
Still getting hints about Miles, and I'm getting sick and tired of it.
You can't have it all in one movie.
You got a nice face. You're a kid. You help poor people. You're from Queens. I just really thought you were going to be black. And I'm like, oh, bring him in already. So real quick, we're nearing the time cap here, and I still have just a few more things I do want to cover.
We can go a little bit over. We can go a little bit.
We're hitting the end of the fight. Strange is failing at keeping the rifts closing from the multiverse. We have a number of villains and characters that are kind of glimpsing through, and you're seeing the number one noted that you can definitely see right off the bat is Kraven.
Yeah.
Taking his staff. We see two different versions of
There's
Scorpion.
a rhino in there. There's a rhino in there.
Who else did I think I saw? We saw some female form, which there's been a few different speculations. It could have been Black Cat, could have been Silk. And it's kind of, people are saying they're foreshadowing villains that might come. And I'm totally 100% on board with Kraven, because we have the black suit that's obviously going to be showing up sometime here in the next trilogy. Yeah. I think it'll be the first opening film in the next trilogy with some form of black suit, and it can open up the storyline for Kraven's Last Hunt, which is a big thing with another episode.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to expect that, especially going into the next Doctor Strange movie, is that even though he sealed up all of those cracks, if they got out the first time when it was less of a mistake and this one was more of a mistake, you've got to know that something or some things have come through, and now Doctor Strange has to deal with it. And that's when he goes to find help, basically, is because now these larger than life beings that he cannot take on by himself is happening. And so that's what I'm wondering, is who got through that makes sense for those storylines. And I want to go to this comment really quick before we move on. Spotter says, I was never a huge fan of Tobey Maguire growing up with his movies. I may be the odd one out, but he wasn't the Spider-Man. To me, great movies, just wasn't a big fan of him, but wow, he won me over in this movie. I feel the same. Like, I didn't have a problem with him. I wouldn't go as far as saying he's not my Spider-Man. But at the time when those movies were made, it was mind-blowing. I watched them over and over. I was so happy to have a Spider-Man, but at the same time, I'm like, why is he so whiny? But that's why, again, in this movie, I just felt so great for him in the moments that he got to have. But one of my favorite moments is to go back when they're all at the school and he doesn't have a Spidey outfit on, and Andrew Garfield's like, so are you going to go fight as a youth pastor? But going back to what's gotten through, there's so many different things that could get through. But if it's some things that Doctor Strange is going to need Wanda for, what do you think it is?
Well, here's the thing, is that the first spell wouldn't have been too bad if he would have just let it happen without, if he would have let Aunt May forget about it, if he would have let Happy forget about it, it would have been that bad. It could have been, And even most of the Avengers, including Doctor Strange, would have been like, "Oh, I don't know who you are," but yet
And he could have said, "I'm Spider-Man."
in that spell, the loophole was everyone in the world is going to forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
There's a few of our Avengers who are off-world at this moment. You have Nick Fury, Thor, Captain Marvel, Guardians of the Galaxy, like that could have been like, "Hey guys, no, this is the kid. We did this, and this together."
And it wasn't that they were going to forget who Peter Parker was. So now the one at the end is, you don't exist to anyone.
That's the sad thing. Yeah, it's like I don't think people caught it. They're saying, "Oh, so does that mean everyone's going to forget who Peter?" No, it's like everyone's going to pretty much forget who this kid is. Like,
they know who Spider-Man is, but Peter Parker never existed.
Like, this kid is the most loneliest soul in the multiverse right now because no one knows about him.
Yeah.
And so that's where we kind of come back to, he's technically still an Avenger and he still has that team, but anything non-Spider-Man that was Peter Parker stuff related is gone now.
Yeah.
And he pretty much doesn't exist. We noticed the GED test booklet in his box when he gets his new house because, like, okay, kid's got to get his GED and then try to get into, what was it, Harvard? No, what's the school they were going to? MIT. And it's like he's going to try to get into MIT with that. Obviously, he has to show that he's brilliant.
Uh-huh.
And so it's like, here's my problem, and it's not even a problem. This is me nitpicking it.
Yeah.
You see him making his new spider suit and everything. It's like, well, yeah, because the suits that Tony gave him, they don't know who he is, so he has no access to Stark technology now.
Yeah.
Like, he literally has to make everything from scratch.
I also think he wanted to start over because he had the chance to tell Happy who he was.
Yeah.
And he didn't. And I really think that he was just like, I need to start over and do some things that I'm proud of and really rebuild myself. And I love the super shiny spandexy, like jazzercise, like outfit he built for himself in however many days he became a seamstress.
It's just kind of been, and like I said, I'm not hating this. It's just, it's very backwards to how the story actually progressed. It went from this kid from Queens, made a suit, kind of raised up to the bar, and then, I am Avenger status.
Yeah.
But where here, it's like, oh, no, Tony Stark finds me. Kid want to be an Avenger? Sure. Go fight in space. And then we're coming back down to I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which is going to work in how he's going to, team up with Daredevil and a couple other heroes supposedly down the road. The scene where we have MJ and Ned at the diner, one, they're totally going to get back together.
Yeah.
Totally are. The next trilogy, guys, again, Tom has signed a contract for another 3 Spider-Man solo films, so they will get back together. The thing now that I'm changing my opinion on, because I had a good lengthy conversation. Val, you asked me if I thought Ned was still going to become the Hobgoblin.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, I think, they kind of played it off when they were in the lab saying, I promise you, I will not become a supervillain and try to kill you. But that's when their friendship was like full blown.
Yeah.
Now we're going into the college years where Ned's going to have, probably access to different things. And he
didn't have Peter to grow up with him. Like, he didn't have that influence in his life. And now he's a little bit more connected to MJ than Peter is.
And I feel a hot love triangle going there. I feel like
there's going to be some green envy that sparks through there a little bit.
Yeah, I was picking up that harshly, and I'm like, oh no.
Even if it's just like, she's my best friend, who do you think you are, or whatever, even if they don't go full love triangle, I definitely think even if he doesn't turn into the Hobgoblin, something's going to go down. They foreshadowed it with that comment, just like right before they kiss, before she forgets about him, she says, I can figure it out. I did it once. I can do it again. That it's just them foreshadowing that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
But that's now I'm leaning towards he's still going to become the Hobgoblin in some shape or form. And I feel like you said, the jealousy thing, that MJ is going to be kind of the pinnacle point of that. Again, next movie, I'm saying Kraven's Last Hunt is going to be, and I don't think Ned will, I think Ned becoming a villain is going to take place in second to third film. It's not going to be right off the bat. Like I said, I'm pretty sure Kraven will be our opening villain in our next trilogy. We have to have Miles show up by movie 2. Because after this, Tom says he's done acting for a while. And let's face it, Sony's going to want to milk this cash cow as long as they can. And what a better way to do it than introducing Miles and having him take the mantle. I say Miles is going to be showing up at least by movie 2, if not 3.
I think he's going to show up before that.
You think?
Yeah. Even if he doesn't show up in this movie, he's either going to have his own or he's going to show up in something else. I don't think they're going to wait that long. Because they have the next Into the Spider-Verse coming, and there's 2 chapters to that movie. There's 2 parts. And so for me, yes, we'll get a little bit of it from them. And so maybe they'll wait in between 1 and 2 of that series to bring him into the live action series. We'll see. It just depends on how much they want to pile it on.
Here's the cool thing is that, me and a few friends were talking about Into the Spider-Verse. They're literally jumping through multiverses. What if Tom's universe is one of the ones that he pops into, and that's how we get our live action Miles?
You and Spotty thinking on the same little track here.
Yeah, see, thanks. I didn't even notice your comment yet, Spotty, but or Spotter, because that's me and my friends were like, technically it could work if he's jumping through. If at the end of Into the Spider-Verse, it's like, okay, that is another multiverse.
I think it would be super smart. I think it would be super smart. They're bringing us in and out of different styles here, different movies, different stories. And if we're going to jump back and forth into TV series and movie, it would be really, really cool if they then connected Into the Spider-Verse into the MCU. Like, to me, that would be mind-blowing, but it would also be something that's never been done before,
animated into live action crossover.
And if anybody was going to do it, it should be Marvel, because for me, it makes total sense. I don't know if they'll have the balls to do it, because if you guys don't understand how movie studios work, they're siloed. So you've got the animation studios, you've got the TV studios, and you've got the movie studios. So for them to all talk to each other takes a lot of effort. But if they can do it, it would be literally mind-blowing for fans.
It would save us an origin story. We would already have it.
Yeah.
We would already have it, and it could be like, hey, well, now he's in this universe and we need him.
Yeah.
Again, he
will have had the same experience that this Peter Parker had. They have this shared experience that they now can connect to, which gives them something that they would need, And
then we have that post-credit scene with Tom Hardy chilling in Mexico. I know you don't like it, but I love Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock.
I don't hate Tom Hardy. I'm just not enthused.
Just the movie. I know you're not a fan of those movies, and I love the first one. The second one,
The first one I was excited to see where it was going. There was a lot about the first that I liked, and then the second one, it
was fast. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on with it, but
that's all I have to say about it.
And the post-credit scene of Let There Be Carnage, guys, spoilers. You have Eddie and Venom laying in bed, and Venom is like, we have a vast hive mind of knowledge that I can tap into. We've crossed galaxies, multiverses, different things. Let me give you a glimpse at that. And when they go to look in, it automatically connects him to the mind that also knows. So Sam Raimi's Venom.
Mm-hmm.
That mind, that information is connected, and that's what Venom taps into. And that's how we get Tom Hardy sitting in Tom Tom's Spider-Man universe. And then we have that little shred that gets left behind. And everyone's like, oh, who's going to be the new Eddie Brock? Are we keeping Tom Hardy? And sadly, I don't think so. I love Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock, and I think him against Tom would be phenomenal. But back in, I think it was our Homecoming. You see the Vulture going to jail, but then we also have a glimpse at Scorpion. And he is in the comics, he's also a host. So I think this new symbiote is going to find him, and he's going to be our first.
Oh, because
Venom.
we do get another glimpse of him in the newer movies.
So I'm thinking he's going to be our new host. And again, this universe is a kind of twisted version because, again, Aunt May dying, we have same scenarios, just little tweaks of different characters and different roles. So I think that's how we're going to get our Venom in the next movie, or even if it's not Venom, just the symbiote coming into contact with certain individuals. But then we go to that awesome trailer that we got before it dropped to the rest of the world.
Yes.
There's so much, guys. And don't hate me, Val. I was super hyped for this movie, and it was amazing. But Multiverse of Madness.
No, we've been saying it from the beginning, since we knew Multiverse of Madness was coming, is that's where everything's going to come to a head. So as much as I love this movie, all the Spider-Man movies since the MCU has existed, before the other two Spider-Man, but this specific MCU, the Spider-Man movies have been a stepping stone to something bigger. Every single one of them has been. And as much as I love Spider-Man, and he's like in my top 5, it's a stepping stone. This was an ultimate stepping stone movie to the Multiverse of Madness, where everything's going to come to a head.
Oh my gosh, guys, there's so much stuff that's going to happen. We're going to give you an episode 2 talking about different stuff. We already have. If you guys haven't,
yeah, but I think we should go back. We'll repost it. But I think we definitely, in our next episode coming up in the next couple of days, we should break down that trailer, and we should break down what you think is coming. Because now we're entering into a world that I know almost nothing about. So I'm super excited. I'm this excited little kid that wants to get inside the candy store, that I've seen all of the things. You've been in the candy store, you know what's in there. And so we want to get both sides of this. So I think our next episode is we're going to jump inside the Multiverse of Madness, and break down this trailer and break down what has led up to it. So all the series that have led up, everything that has little droplets of trails that's going to tell us what's going to be in that movie. So stick around, keep checking us out. We appreciate everybody that's tuned in today. Let us know your comments and what you think. We'll probably have more to say about No Way Home before we get into the Multiverse of Madness on our next episode. But I mean, there's just so much to talk about. So let us know, comment. You can send us a DM if you have topics that you would like to talk about. If you maybe want to be on the show because you think that you know more than Ty, DM us. Maybe you can be on the show with us. This year, we would really love to have listeners and watchers kind of interact a little bit more with us on the show and chat. So give us some feedback. Thank you so much for tuning in. Ty, what do you got to say?
I was just going to say, we're not also just here for the Marvel guys. Anything Disney property.
Yeah.
I can do this all day with Star Wars. Don't even get me started. We're already going to have to get into the Book of Boba Fett coming up soon.
Yes. I want to wait until we're 3 episodes in, and then I would like to talk about the Book of Boba Fett. So let's give that 3 weeks, jump in there. Because I have a lot to say about the first one, but I definitely think we need a broader view of this.
But if you have Disney properties like Marvel, Star Wars, parks, books, anything Disney property, guys, you want us to talk about it, we're all for it. So thanks, Spotter and Jim, for interacting with us today. We want more of that going into 2022.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.